Who's alive? Yeah, boy. Hey, good morning. Como televo? How are you? It's a Monday. Oh my gosh. Welcome to Forex.Today, the YouTube community of more than 20,000 foreign exchange traders. We gather here today to conduct technical and fundamental analysis because trading is risky and not appropriate for everyone. Your past performance, good or bad, is not necessarily indicative of future results. Please stay small, stay humble, focus on the long term, never risk money, cannot afford to lose. Hey, my name is Wayne. Good to see you. Yeah, so what do you want to do today? How about some charts? You want to do some charts? Yeah, sounds good. We have a very interesting week. We've already had flat news out of China, flat CPI, which is not good because they would like a little bit of inflation. They're in a disinflationary period and approaching deflation. But also their PPI is terrible, which means they're not getting out of this situation anytime soon. It's probably going to get worse because PPI is a leader on top of CPI. So anyway, so a bad PPI just means there's a bad CPI around the corner. So anyway, a lot of commodity currencies are feeling pain today. Yeah. Well, we also have Bank of Canada this week. We have RBNZ this week. We have CPI this week. And sort of the hidden catalyst, if you will, because all that is known. What a lot of people, in particular currency traders, overlook is that this week is also the beginning of Q3 earnings season. But it is a market mover. So anyways, holy smokes, a very interesting week. Thank you for being part of our community. Thank you for clicking the thumbs up button. Thank you for leaving comments. All that is really good and tells the YouTube algo that, hey, this is quality content. And I'd appreciate if you did that. I do my best for you. Pay it back if you could. Simply by doing that. That would be a big help. What else? Well, look, there are resources made for you that are available to you. You know, I did this last week. Why don't we do this again? Hang on. Let me just put some visuals on some of this. I got to move over to here. Okay. Cool. So after running, you know, almost exactly 20 years ago, I started an organization called FX Bootcamp. When you go to fxbootcamp.com, it switches you over immediately. It's now been rebranded to Investor Bootcamp because the conversations we have are so much bigger than only Forex. And so I want to point this out that, yes, we cover Forex and central banking and day trading and macroeconomics, but now there's also an amazing course on the oil complex. I think I called it the oil complex made easy. But also, we're going to start doing courses on trading the stock market, investing into gold, personal finance, real estate, hedge funds, venture capital, family offices, cryptocurrencies, and more. So just imagine FX Bootcamp now getting serious. Okay, learn how to invest and trade everything. So that's really cool. Check that out. That's, again, I've been running that for 20 years. I point you over to QuantBox. If you're a subscriber to QuantBox, what it does is it does all your macroeconomic research automatically. What does that look like? Lots of pretty colors. Amazing stuff. This is the Commitment to Traders report. Now, what I want to point you towards today is over the next week, you're going to get a lot of emails from me in regards to QuantBox. There are 18 updates to the service. Some of them small and helpful, and you're like, oh, that's really helpful. That's really cute. And some of it is like, holy smokes, big big new features. So I'm going to roll them out all this week. So swing on by QuantBox, take a test drive. It's only $8. But look for those emails. And so one will help you, let's say, technical analysis and trader psychology. QuantBox will help you with your macroeconomics and fundamentals. And then you also need a trustworthy, ethical foreign exchange broker to execute your trades with your liquidity partners. Yeah, baby. Trader's Way earned my loyalty and respect about 8 years ago. In particular, around the point where the Swiss National Bank lied to the entire world, pulled the plug on the peg to the euro, and wiped entire brokers out of business. Big brokers went out of business that day. Trader's Way was perfectly fine. Do you know why? How do you interpret that? The brokers that went out of business were holding all the trades of their clients. They're basically trading against their clients. Trader's Way was perfectly fine. And when I contacted them, I'm like, oh my God, brokers are going out of business. How are you guys doing? And they're like, we're fine. I'm like, really? They're like, yeah. I mean, look, they're a small boutique foreign exchange shop compared to these huge brokers that went out of business. I'm like, well, why is that? How come you guys are okay? And they're like, well, we executed the trades just like our clients asked us to. The trades are in the interbanking system. It went straight through us and straight into the interbanking system like we promised. And I'm like, oh my God. Thank you, Trader's Way. So anyways, check them out, tradersway.com. Coolio, man. Coolio. So the world is a good place. When I started, all of this was complicated. Learning how the markets work, trader psychology, technical analysis, macroeconomics, fundamental analysis, and then even finding a trustworthy, ethical foreign exchange broker. All of that stuff was nearly impossible. And now there it is. Okay. Can I send you a link to the third quarter outlook? I don't have one scheduled yet. I'm trying to clear my schedule as much as possible. I work all through the holidays and all that kind of stuff. I work all through the weekends. I'm trying to get to it. I'm going to try to do it. I wanted to do it this week. I don't think I can get it done, but maybe. So, but probably next week. But you know what we are going to do? I'm going to maybe plan 2 different meetups. One for sure, one is a maybe. Would anybody want to meet up in Havana, Cuba for a cocktail and a cigar and talk about Forex? I'm thinking middle of August. The second one is, and that's the maybe, but I know some nice places we can go to have and then we can go out for dinner and stuff like that. And I know some amazing places in Havana that you might want to see. So if you're German and it's no big deal, Americans it's difficult. I get it, but if you're a Brit, yeah, get on a plane, fly to Cuba. Okay, get a sunburn. Check it out. It's warm there. You'll love it. The next thing, so that's a maybe. I really need to go back because, again, I am fascinated. When I went to Cuba in January, they had crazy inflation. Now they have out of control. Inflation has doubled since January. Another way of saying it, in U.S. dollar terms, everything in Cuba is half the price it was in January for me. Half the price. I mean, I've never seen an economy like that before. I got to witness it. And then I need to help those who I can help. So no one responded like they want to go to Cuba. Okay, fine. I'm going to go anyways. The second thing, and this is going to happen, so put it on your calendar. I don't have a webpage yet. But I've booked my airplane. I've booked my hotel. So this is going to happen the 13th of September. It's a Wednesday. and I think I've even found the venue. We're going to do a meetup, a live in-person meetup in Austin, Texas. Anyone want to go to Austin, Texas? September 13th. It's a Wednesday. Okay. Again, cocktails, maybe dinner, maybe a cigar, something like that. I found a nice swanky place. It's cool with an outdoor deck. I like to be outdoors. There'll be some small, modest fee, and I'll arrange it, and maybe everybody gets a cocktail and all that kind of stuff. So Austin, Texas, the 13th of September, it's going to happen. So whether it's 5 or 50, swing on by, huh? Johnny's like, October would be awesome. Go see the F1 race. What are they going to be? Where are they going to be? But anyway, so September 13th. I am already going to be in Austin. I've spent a few $1,000 on some training to improve as a coach. So anyway, so there's some housekeeping. Look for that. How many people are a maybe for that? Austin's an easy place to fly into. It'll be nice. It'll be warm, but not ripper hot. It's downtown. I'll be downtown near the Capitol building. It's a cool place. Austin's nice. Yeah, there won't be like it's not like a $500 evening where I go out and I do some Forex training and all that. No, we're just going to meet up, have cocktails and maybe a dinner. There'll be like I said, there'll be a small fee or something so I can arrange and get the facility booked. I'd like to have like a nice swanky place, but we close it off for the evening. So we meet up at like 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock or something like that, get there early, and we rent the place for ourselves for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then let them open it up. And then maybe after we can go have a nice dinner together. Okay. Yeah, Denise says, New York in the fall or something. Yeah, that's going to happen too. Definitely. I see. Right. Oh, yeah. I'll invite Joe Rogan. Sweet. Yeah. Okay. I'll reach out. Europe, when? You guys, just tell me. I'll go anywhere and do anything. I'll go anywhere as long as we can put a small crew together and help cover my costs. I'll go anywhere almost any time. I just have to arrange things for my own family and stuff like that. But yeah, I'll go anywhere. Over the next 18 months, I'd love to go almost every month, go somewhere. Okay? Okay? So anyway, so we'll look for that. Okay? Cool. Oh, and boy, when we're in New York, we have a lot of fun. Oh, we've done that a couple of times over the last few years, and we're just, what an amazing time. Especially going to the Harvard Club is really a special thing. You should come to Berlin. Yeah, I've never been to Berlin. I'd love to go to Berlin. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Berlin, totally. I've been around. I've been through Germany several times, but I haven't made it to Berlin. Sure, I'd love to go to Berlin. Yeah, yeah, the courts are nice, hey, kits, kit clouds. That's cool. Sky Killer says, let's go to the Hamptons. Yeah. Yeah, the problem is most of the stuff there is quite high-end VIP stuff. But yeah, I'd go to Berlin. Not in the winter. You know what I'd do? I'd go to the south of England, take a boat across the channel, land in Normandy, and drive to Berlin. That'd be fun, man. Carentan! I'm in Carentan! Anyways, I love military history. Anyways, yeah, so let's get on with it. So all that's very exciting. It's all happening. Austin is happening. I just need to reserve the place. Like I said, there's a swanky hotel with on the second story. There's a swanky bar. They have a big outdoor patio, covered patio too, overlooking the beautiful kind of downtown area, which is really nice. So we can kind of have an indoor-outdoor space. And I'm sure they'll have a nice restaurant where we could just get, a table for 10 or something like that. So maybe we'll break it down where there'll be like I don't know, for like, I know marketing people do this. I don't know any other way, but be like, we could do like a cocktail only event and then like a VIP dinner or something like that. Cause just getting a dinner for 50, like let's say 50 people show up and we all go for dinner. It's like, I'm not going to be able to spend time with 50 people, right, at a dinner table. So maybe we'll do like a big cocktail event for most, and we'll do that. And then maybe we'll end with a smaller, maybe a group of 8 that want to go to dinner. And I can have it all arranged and it's all pre-taken care of, that kind of stuff, right? Miranda says, don't come to South Africa. Oh, no, but I want to. Yeah, we have serious power. Well, I'll just bring batteries, right? Yeah. Bring some batteries. Yeah. Well, you're in Cape Town, right? So why don't you just build a giant Russian nuclear power plant right in the dead center of the city and then not turn it on? Oh, wait, Johannesburg did that. Oh, well, forget it. All right. Yen is still strong, and dollar gave a lot on non-farm payrolls. Okay. So NFP was a lower number, not a low number, but it was not a high number. So there was a bit of a relief rally, a little bit, in the dollar in particular, suggesting that maybe the Fed doesn't have to jack up interest rates as high. I said the dollar's weak, but I think it. I think the headline number of non-farm payrolls changed nothing. Okay. So the Fed's still going to raise at least 2. I think even we go to 6 is really on the table. Honestly, I think we can go to 6. And possibly without even recession. I think, it's starting to look interesting how strong this economy really is. Maybe because they're not destroying the $5 trillion. Okay. 6 1/4. Oh, that's crazy talk, mate. Crazy talk. But yeah, I mean, like, we're not done, right, Meta? So nonetheless, dollar weakness, I'm not going to swallow the hook. I think that dollar can still come back around and be strong again. Well, we'll see. My job isn't to guess or to bet, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. But the yen strength showed up on time. Look at that yen strength index on the top right-hand corner. Notice that it started July 1st, Canada Day, which I predicted 6 months ago, that on that day, yens will get strong. Oh, boom. So that I do believe The dollar weakness, I don't believe. Then when you look at the stock market, typically when the dollar is weak, the stock market is rallying. And it didn't. It did for 4 hours and then it collapsed. And then gold would rally, and it did for 4 hours and then it collapsed. And so I'm kind of like that fish tapping its nose on the hook, smelling the worm, and he's thinking, you know what? This is a trap. That's me. I'm a wide-mouthed bass tapping the hook. Like, I don't want to swallow it. Not this one, even if I'm hungry. Okay? Okay? Yeah, feeling the inflation. Yeah, for sure. But you know what? And we talked about this. It doesn't hit everyone equally, and not everything is the same. And so, like, there's all these different effects. Like there's a substitution effect. So filet mignon is cheaper, but chicken is more expensive. Now the economy is slowing down. People have less money. Prices go up, so they have less, like the purchasing power falls of a dollar. So they're like, I can't afford filet mignon. And then they look at hamburger, which is dog food, and it's $10 a pound. You're like, $10 a pound for dog food? So now they're looking at chicken, and they're buying chicken for $4 a pound. But it used to be 98 cents a pound. So all of a sudden, demand for chicken is likely to go up, and prices will go from $1 to $2 to $3 to $4 and maybe $5. So, but at the same time, filet mignon has dropped from 25 to 21 to 20 to, and now you can get filet mignon for probably $16 a pound. So if you're filthy stinking rich, things get cheaper. And that's the weird thing about wealth, by the way. Once you get once you get sort of the next level financially in your life, it's weird how things get cheaper. One paradox is like these high-end credit cards. Suddenly, like when you travel in first class for free. So you get a $10,000 ticket for free. And then you stay at a hotel. It's $1,000 a night, but you're only paying $250 a night. You know, right? Like when you don't have that level of income to get that high level of card, you're like, that's a beautiful hotel, but I can't afford to stay there for $1,000 a night. But what you don't know is nobody's paying $1,000 a night. The richer you get, the cheaper things can get, right? And all of a sudden, when the economy goes sour and you can only afford chicken quadruples in price, but filet mignon drops by 50%. I'm also finding like right now watches, exotic watches, prices have dropped a lot. Now, I don't shop in the United States. In the United States, there's still a lot of money here. But if you travel or if you look internationally and buy like fine watches, right, collectible watches, in certain parts of the world, prices have dropped a lot. And the reason for it is you can't eat a watch. So you sell your watch, you convert it to cash so you can buy food. So it's a weird thing like that, right? So it depends. I'm trying to buy a watch in the Ukraine right now, which is interesting, huh? So there are these pockets in the economy that are falling, but by and large, as Maida said, by and large, the cost of just staying alive has gone up, but there are opportunities to thrive. Okay? Like typically, for example, like I don't think the real estate market's going to come down, but let's just take like 2008. If you had played the situation well, prices dropped by 50% or more in the real estate market. If you had cash, nobody cared about credit because there was no credit. You're like, I have a high credit score. Banks were not lending money unless you were extremely high in credit and income to debt ratio. You had to be better than the best to get money. Now, I was able to do that in 2008. And it was an extraordinary time because prices were down 50, 60% because nobody could access the capital markets. You couldn't, again, unless you were better than the best, you couldn't go to a bank. Literally, and like, I can buy this house for 50% off. No, we're not lending to anybody for anything, and especially for real estate. But if you could be that one person, the deals were phenomenal. So these times of financial market stress often lead to opportunity. So, you know, again, I'm talking about this paradox where most people have to pay 400% more to buy chicken. Some people pay 50% less for filet mignon. Or somebody loses their house because their mortgage is too expensive, and someone else buys the house for 50% off. Okay? I bought a $100,000 car in 2007, 2008, right? Somewhere in there, and I paid $27,000. The reason for it is you could not, under any circumstance, nobody, I don't care if you were a billionaire, if you needed a car loan, there wasn't. No, there was no car loans anymore. The entire market was gone. So, and we have to understand housing was falling, the stock market was falling, everything was falling, everything was collapsing. Nobody had credit, nobody had money. But if you literally had cash in your pocket, you could buy a $100,000 car for $27,000. Right? So it's a weird paradox. It's a weird paradox. And this one is interesting because this is a man-made phenomenon. We have inflation. It was created by the government. And now parts of the government are trying to solve the problem. But we talked about this in the past. The federal government created the inflation, and everyone's waiting for the Fed to fix it. But the Fed can't fix our inflationary problem 100%. Now, they've gotten us down to probably pretty close to as low as they can get, but we know wage inflation is not likely to go away. It doesn't seem like it's going to. We know housing inflation is not going to go away. Maybe actual rent, but not home owner equivalent rent, right? So anyway, it's kind of an interesting thing. So we've jacked up interest rates and there still isn't inflation. Okay. But money is how many people here have heard like the idea that money is an illusion? And that's kind of like what we see. Like it's a very strange, kind of weird world. But once you understand sort of how like this money thing kind of works, when there's this oddity of like recession or fear of recession, the weirdest little pockets of opportunity open up. But you have to understand where they're going to be kind of as they're happening, because it's hard to observe. It's hard to see a black hole, especially in the blackness of space, the darkness of space. You need some light around it. So like, I don't think you're going to get an amazing opportunity in real estate. Now, we might get some weird, interesting things happen down the road as commercial have to re-up, so to speak, into much higher interest rates. Right now, a mortgage in the United States, residential. I'm not sure about commercial. That's more negotiated. But I believe if you're going to buy a house right now, it's going to cost you 7%. Okay. And I was trying to explain it to my son over the weekend. I said, I think my mortgage is 3.5%. And right now, a new mortgage is 7%. So I said to my son, I could sell our house right now, and for the same amount of monthly expense, get half the house. I'm like, so what do you think? Should I sell my house and buy a tiny house and pay the same amount of money? He's like, no, that doesn't make any sense. I'm like, yeah. So anyways, prices are not going to come down because nobody's going to sell their house, right? Why would you sell your house to get half the size at the same price? Because most people they don't actually buy a home or really anything by what it costs. You look at your monthly expense, right? And that's the other weird thing, right? So you might only make $75,000 a year, but you want a really nice car. And you're like, I can't afford a $75,000 car, but I can pay $800 a month for a lease to look like a millionaire. And I'm like, but it's that decision, like, that you would do that with your money that will prevent you from ever being a millionaire, right? So anyway, so it's a weird thing. And same thing with houses. You're like, I can afford a $5,000 a month mortgage, and that's that. So what does that get me? Well, if the cost to borrow money is doubled, it gets you half. So anyway, so no one's going to sell. So that's why, like, owner equivalent rent is going to stay high. It doesn't matter what the Fed's going to do. That problem was created by the White House and Congress, not by the Board of Governors and the Federal Open Market Committee. Okay? So kind of an interesting world, but once you start to say, like, okay, the opportunity is not going to be in real estate yet. Now, again, if they roll over and they get a low valuation on a commercial property and the monthly cost, again, like a car, right? Like let's say your mortgage goes from $1 million a month to $2 million a month for the same property. Now you're in trouble, especially if you don't have $2 million in rent coming in, right? So that could lead to a devaluation in price, and that could lead to a commercial real estate opportunity, but maybe not. I think a lot of banks are going to, and the Fed even, they're all sensitive to this, and they might just everyone take a small loss on everything. Banks will get less, the property developers or owners will get less, and all that kind of stuff, and they buy time until inflation comes down in 2 or 3 years, right? Greg's like, yeah, like wise automakers with overpriced cars. And that's the other thing too, right? Like, if you look at income levels from 25 years ago and what they are now, okay, and then you adjust for inflation and everything, they're pretty stable, okay? We make a little bit more than we did back then. Again, adjusted for inflation and all that kind of stuff. Okay. Something like, I don't even remember the number. I don't know, 5, 10, 15% more. Okay. Okay, good. And that has to do with productivity and all that kind of stuff. Okay, great. But when you look at a car now, the average car is really expensive. I mean, the average car, I think, is 50% more than 25 years ago, even when you adjust for inflation. And the average house is doubled. So if you make a 15% more money, but the cost of buying a house is doubled, you're kind of in trouble. Okay? But then think of the person that bought the house 25 years ago that's now selling it to you. They're better off. Okay? Jim says the average car is $46,000. Is that right? Yeah. To me, that's just absolutely phenomenal. Because what's the average wage? You know, again, not average, like total all Americans. Let's say workforce, you got it, right? Workforce, stuff like that, I think is closer to 60. I know actual average is much lower than that, but let's say instead of average, you look at the mean. There's a slight difference. When you look at the mean, you take out like the bottom quartile and the top quartile, so you're not comparing um, welfare recipients and right to millionaires. So you take it out like that. But so let's say someone that drive. So if you add the averages, like let's go with Jim's 46,000 average car, but then the average working class person is making 60. You're like, dude, seriously? Like you start to look at that, you're like, something is way off, right? If the average person makes 60 grand a year, but the average car is 50, it's way off. So in like 1960, let's say the average household income, I don't know what the numbers, let's say it's $12,000 a year in 1960, but you could buy a Ford Mustang for $1,200, right? Or whatever the number was. I mean, there was a big difference. Cars were a lot more affordable. A house was, like for example, in 1960 or 1970, there were no 30-year mortgages. They didn't exist. So now people have 30-year mortgages. And the reason for it is you don't spend 5 years of income on a house. You spend 500 years of income on your house, right? Right, Richard. That's about 55,000 a year. Yeah, yeah. 3 month salary. Yeah, yeah. So, anyways, all these things have changed. It's really interesting from an economics point of view. Now, one reason I really want to get back to Cuba. In 6 months, inflation has doubled. I've never seen that before. I've I haven't been like in Argentina or Zimbabwe or something. Here's a very interesting scenario because when I first went to visit, it was sort of like what happens when you convert from capitalism to socialism. When I was in Eastern Europe, it's kind of always been socialism. Okay, so you look at it, and you're like, ugh. Um, then you go to Cuba, and Cuba is one of the most amazing places on earth where on one day, it changed. Everything changed on one day. And there's just like this ancient civilization. You can almost travel back through time. And you can see on the day how things changed and where it led. I mean, it makes me think of the place in the jungles of Cambodia, Angkor Wat. I'd love to go to Angkor Wat, but that wasn't an economic situation. That was an environmental situation. I'd still like to go to Angkor Wat, right? But anyways, like Cuba is another version of like on one day there was this ancient civilization of capitalists, and now they're all gone. Um, what's it? What's the difference? Now going back would be I was there in January and made observations, and I talked to a lot of people of all different parts of society, let's say. Um, Lots of observations. What's changed in 6 months? Nothing? Everything. Somewhere in between. I don't know. What prices in terms of dollar, what stuff has dropped by 50% and what has not dropped by 50%? What is more? I mean, I don't know. It'd be, wow, what an amazing thing to observe. Got to get back. 100% inflation in 6 months. But are Cohibas still $100? Okay. And is my $4 rum, aged 12 years, by the way, is my $4 rum $2 now? When I go to Cha Cha Cha, there's this restaurant down near the Floridian, the bar that, well, every bar claims to be what's his name's favorite. Anyways, it was expensive for Cubans, a place called Cha Cha Cha. And I got there and I thought it was expensive. Like, you're going to drop $30 on dinner and a cocktail. Which, yeah, sorry. Thank you, Maida. Is that still crazy expensive because they're all living on tourism? Or did that drop from $30? Again, a doctor makes $40 a year. Or sorry, $40 a month. So you imagine going to a restaurant and you have some pork, beans, and rice and a Cuba Libre. And it's 30 US dollars. You're like, dude, that's expensive, right? Is that now 15 or is that the same? If you go 3 blocks away and go have dinner at a local restaurant, it might cost you $5 for a comparable dinner, right? So you got to get out, meet the people. So I got to get back. So if anyone wants to meet up in Cuba, maybe we can arrange where we can spend the day together. I got some other things I want to do there, so it would just be like kind of a day or evening thing. We can have a meetup. I think I could get that done. We could get that done. There's a few different things we could do. So if you're into it, let me know. The average price of a 7-day trip to Cuba is $833 for a solo, $1,400 for a couple. Once you get to Cuba, it's hard to spend money. Like, I was there for 3 days or something. I found it difficult to spend $200 US dollars. I ate I ate dinner at 7:00 and then I ate dinner again at like 10:30. I ate two. I told my fixer, I'm like, I want to eat my way through Cuba. That kind of stuff. And my flight from Atlanta to Cuba was $300. I stayed in the nicest hotel in Cuba and it was cheap. So you don't need much money to be in Cuba. And once you're there, talk to people and buy stuff. They need hard currency. They need help. Anyways, that's the other thing. I met a lot of people there. I need to get back. I want to take care of the people I met. Yeah, that's right, Neri. Right. You could get a nice hotel for $50-$60 a night for sure. The 5-star hotels, yeah, some of them are even more than that. There's a couple, I was really surprised. There's a few that are like $400 or $500 a night. Not many though. Not many. And $200 gets you nice, but also 50 to 100 gets you very, very nice high-end hotels. Again, you're talking about 2 months of salary for a doctor per night at your hotel. Okay? Yeah, Maida, well, I can't do anything about that, nor can I say anything while I'm there. So it's more like, look, you got to do something. At the very least, go talk to people and tip well. Make a difference. I don't know. So let's go there. When I was there in January, there was no tourism. There was no tourists. There was no nothing. People were really hurting. It's a never-ending story. Well, that's the other thing. You know what? This might be the thing, Maida. global recession, global inflation puts stress on the whole situation. So what could happen, Meta, is that support from Russia and China goes away just because they're screwed themselves. Russia's not in the same situation as normal. China's not in the same situation as normal. And if suddenly Cuba is on its own and the rest of the world is just rampant inflation, so suddenly like Canadians can't afford to go, Germans can't afford to go, the British have 10% inflation. So they're like, dude, I can't afford to go to Cuba. Look at here. Almost nobody said they would go to Cuba. They're like, because what are they thinking? I don't have the time and money to do that. It sounds nice. It sounds fun, but ultimately, I don't have the time and money, right? So when the world is responding to that, then Cuba is in a serious problem. Okay? Who knows what that could lead to? I don't know. I'm not saying anything. But it'd be interesting to be able to go and see and understand the story a little bit more, see the humanity. Because I know if something does happen, watching it on TV is not going to be the real world. So be there when the Berlin Wall comes down. A friend of mine was at the Berlin Wall. He took a sledgehammer to the Berlin Wall as it came down. It'd be like, I don't know. I'm not saying it would be that situation, but it'd be interesting to observe it as an economist to see what happens when you do have a situation of out of control inflation. Pound dollar. Okay, this is something that we've been doing at boot camp in the day trading group. In fact, even just last night on Sunday, we had this kind of we were looking at Stokes and MACD and this top. Yeah, when is it? Sam, I penciled it in to Friday. I might be able to do it Friday. I might. Maybe I should just do it. I mean, I kind of I've set it up. I should probably just freaking do it. Gee, Murphy. You know, that's the interesting thing about management, isn't it? If you give somebody 50 hours, they can do it in 50 hours. If you give them the same thing and tell them to do it in 20 hours, they can do it in 20 hours. I should just do it. I don't have the time. You guys want to do a quarterly outlook on Friday? Oh. Sorry. Sorry about that. I sighed so much I got a snot in my nose now. I'm almost crying. Will it be live? Yes. It would be live Friday. Oh my God. Oh. Friday at 11 a.m. Which would be, what is that, 4 p.m. in London, 5 p.m. in the rest of Europe? Would you guys do that? Meta says only an army could take the government down. I know what you're saying, and of course I don't have the right to disagree. I mean, it's your people, right? But I don't know. A revolution is a revolution. I don't know. I don't know what Cuba would do if it ran out of rice and beans, because it's all that's left, right? Just, I mean, that's a part of socialism. Uh, you don't have much, but you're given everything. But when you get given nothing, yeah, then what happens? Eat banana peels. Well, like the old timer that, like the guy, this Cuban farmer, he must have been 100 years old, skinny and tough, dark skin, skinny but tough, right? Like skin made out of leather. And he's like, right? He's like, no, you know, no food, okay. No coffee, okay. No, right? No cigars, not okay. Whatever. But this idea, like, sustenance means coffee and a cigar. And notice what both of that does. It suppresses your appetite, right? So anyways, but yeah. So anyways, who knows, Meta? Changes change. And who knows what things could lead to. Okay. But anyways, so how many people would attend a quarterly outlook Friday at 11 a.m. New York time, 5 p.m. Frankfurt time? Do you want me to do it? Do you care? I'm going to charge $10. I've already created it. It's already done. I just don't, up until now, I've put it on the side burner to actually do the work, but I'll do the work, but you need to show up. Yeah, I can do it. Something else has to sacrifice. That's all, right? Okay. So my focus then will be sending you up releasing all the new updates to QuantBox and getting the quarterly outlook done. So we'll do the quarterly outlook at QuantBox. So even if you're not a subscriber to QuantBox, we'll do it at QuantBox, and you'll be able to attend even if you're not a subscriber. But I'll do it around that. Just kind of ties everything in. Yeah. Made us like eating banana peels back in the day. Yeah, but you know, the world has done that. The world, for most of human civilization, has been rather poor. Right? And things like, my grandmother used to make wonderful banana bread. Also, my grandmother made wonderful zucchini loaf, same kind of thing. Why did Europeans eat this stuff? Because, I think the original recipe comes from something else, but the banana part and the zucchini part, whatever. So anyways, why did this stuff come about? A, you needed food. And B, what do you do with kind of the rotten bananas or the rotten zucchini? You shove it in a bread. I don't know about the banana peels, but, yeah. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see, like, are you eating them raw? Are you cooking them? Are you baking them? Do you put salt on it, or do you put sugar on it? Or do you put anything on it? Like, can you make soup out of it? I don't know, but the world has been poor for a very long time. It was just more in the last really 100 years where half the world, or let's say 1/3 of the world, got filthy, stinking rich. And places like Cuba, decided not to participate. Nor did El Salvador, nor did Honduras. Okay? When Cuba fell to the revolution, many of the cigar families fled, but Drone went from all around the world. He tried to establish something in Tampa Bay, and he couldn't really get that going. And then he was courted by Nicaragua. So he goes to Nicaragua, and they set up shop there. They're planting and growing their own tobacco. They set up all the rolling factories and stuff. And the government at that time was backed by a former general. So it was supposed to be secure and all that kind of stuff. And so he was there about 7 years, and then there was a revolution, and they burned down his fields. They blew up with bombs, right? Tried to assassinate him, and then blew up his factory where people, hundreds of people were rolling cigars, and it's spray paint on the side that capitalist, something like that, capitalist big dog sprayed on the outside, and then of course 50 years of extreme poverty. Yeah. Capitalism is the first model in human history to really work well. Although you would argue that parts of Egypt were very capitalist. In particular, back when, because we forget, like Egypt back 5,000 years ago was very tropical, very lush. Now, part of the Nile Valley is still lush, but I mean, even outside of that, 5,000 years ago, the environment wasn't just sand dunes, right? And it was very rich and it worked very well. But there's a story of the king, I don't remember his name. Some guy, the king from Mali, was it? He was filthy, stinking rich in gold, and he went to visit Egypt one day and handed out gold to all the poor people. Basically, he was there to do philanthropic work, and he was so rich, and he gave away so much money that he collapsed the entire Egyptian economy because hyperinflation, most likely. Everybody had money. And I don't know if he intended for that, but it's kind of interesting. So how do you ruin capitalism? Hyperinflation. Because there's no productivity compared to the free money. So it doesn't matter if the government hands out money for free or somebody else just shows up. Manus Musa. Yeah, that's him. You got it. From Mali, right? Yeah. Yeah. So it doesn't matter if the government gives away free money. If all the billionaires, because you hear this all the time, all the billionaires in America could just solve poverty and hunger by giving their money away. Oh my God. Dude, amazing. I just got a watch. I was just talking to that watch in the Ukraine. He sold it to me. Wow. Dude. Disinflationary. Oh my God. So anyways, it doesn't matter if billionaires solved America's problem by just giving money away for free, the economy would collapse. The American government would collapse. The American economy would collapse. All of civilization would collapse, and nobody would have anything. The solution to poverty and hunger in America is not free money. That's just not. It's just not. It doesn't work that way. That's not how the world works. It didn't work in Egypt 5,000 years ago. It didn't work in Cuba 50 years ago. It didn't work during COVID. And it wouldn't work if Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates, Warren Buffett gave their money away for free. It wouldn't work. So anyways. Huh? Doesn't work. Okay, check out Eastern Europe. Eastern Europe's a beautiful place with nice people. The economy sucks. Okay, the superstar economies in Eastern Europe, Poland, Hungary, Czech Republic. Go to the smaller countries. Slovakia, Slovenia, nice, beautiful places, great people. I have Slovenian friends that are wonderful human beings, and but not much of an economy. And then there's even smaller economies than that, and now it's a struggle. Okay. Well, why would hyperinflation collapse capitalism? Because there's not enough. It's the same as your money becomes worthless, is essentially it. Okay, so the secret, Ashish, is not how much money you have. Like we were saying before, money is an illusion. I just bought a cheap watch in the Ukraine. Well, I shouldn't say cheap. I got an amazing deal from my point of view by buying this watch, and I just got it. I mean, it's incredible. I got an amazing deal, but what does it mean? In my mind, it's a deal. Now, he can't eat a watch, and he might need cash. But what does he really need? He needs hard currency. Hard currency. And so he's given up a watch. Now he's got hard currency. Same thing like when you go to Cuba. Think of it this way. Has the Cuban peso dropped by 50%? Or is there twice as much demand for hard currency USD? If suddenly, like, everyone wants off the island. They're like, everyone wants to go to Miami, but they need hard currency. Suddenly they're like, dude, right? The demand for the hard currency is what's happening. Watches haven't dropped by 50%. Demand for hard currency, they need it, right? Same thing with Cuba. All right, look, maybe a bottle of rum has dropped by 50%. Maybe a cigar. I doubt Cohibas have dropped by 50%. I swear to you, a Cohiba is probably still $100 a stick. I'm not even joking. People go to Cuba and they're like, oh, you can get a Cohiba for cheap, right? No, they're $100 for one Cohiba cigar. I got mine for free because I visited Cohiba. But anyways, so what's actually changed? The bottle of rum, the cup of coffee cost you now 50 cents instead of $1? Or is it demand for hard currency what's really important? And yeah, I think that's what's happening. The peso has kind of changed the same. Remember, it's a closed economy. So technically, the Cuban peso never changes value. You guys understand that? It doesn't float globally. So this is kind of an interesting conversation because we buy and sell money, right? In a closed economy, there's no international trade. They don't import, they don't export. Now you can say, well, the electrical, generators come in from China and stuff like that. But let's just say by and large, it's closed. And they probably get it for nearly free. So it's one way anyways. So just imagine Cuba is one of the few economies on the planet that is completely closed. So as an economist, I get excited because in your undergraduate work in economics, they always start you with a closed economy. But I don't know any closed economies. Well, now I do. Cuba, right? Okay, great. Which means their currency, like you can't go to Bank of America in your hometown or the Bank of Canada or the Bank of England and say, I'd like to get some Cuban peso, please. They're like, we don't have any Cuban peso in our vaults. Okay, so it's a closed economy. No international trade. The money moves or circulates inside the economy, but it never leaves. There's no foreign exchange. So there's no way for the value of the Cuban peso to change. And theoretically, you wouldn't need to add or subtract money supply, right? The central bank wouldn't need to add more pesos. There's just enough. And it moves around, moves around. Nobody's rich, nobody's poor, okay? And it just moves around. So when we talk about in dollar terms, peso, $1 a year ago only bought you 50 or 60 pesos. And then when I visited, I got 100 pesos on the black market. Now it's 200 pesos. No. The pesos are the same. The demand for a dollar has changed. So it's very, very, very interesting to observe the closed economy and see sort of the supply and demand of different things change. But the value of the money is the same. So yeah, going back to Ashish, yeah, so hyperinflation, the secret to all of it, Ashish, what we all want, you don't care about money. Money is an illusion, as I said. Money is a complete illusion. What we want is productivity. I'd never seen in my entire life. I've been around the world a lot. And everywhere I've been is basically capitalist or somewhat capitalist. Everywhere. Everywhere in the world. So you see things like people are concerned about efficiency. Although in China, I've seen people, their job was to stand in front of a door and guard the door. Or when I was a venture capitalist, but this was in the late 90s, early 2000s, we were investing into RFID, radio frequency identification systems, so that you can track your supply chain in real time. When we got to China to implement this, the Chinese are like, why do you want that? I'm like, well, with RFID, we could track every single box, every single garment through the supply chain. And they're like, you're interested in that? They're like, yeah, we can actually track the box from the factory to the truck, from the truck to the port, from the port to the plane or the boat, and then across, and then we can track it going through customs. They're like, you want that? We'll just hire somebody. Why build the technology? We'll just have this guy follow the box. And every time you want an update, he'll just hit a button for you. And boop, we just put it on a truck. If you want that, we can do it. Obviously not very productive. Now, China's changed a lot in 25 years, right? And so productivity and efficiency is what's very, very important to capitalism. How to lower your cost and increase your return. And that's what productivity is. So hyperinflation, what that means is there's no return for productivity. In fact, productivity lags the money so that you might get 5% more productivity, but 10% more cost, which is still negative. So more and more money gives you less and less return, to the point where you could have $1 million and not be able to buy a latte, because it's $1.3 million for a latte at Starbucks, right? So when you get to like Cuba, again, something that blew my mind because I'd never seen this before, well, or not really, not since the early days in China, of people getting paid to do nothing. I'd never seen it before. 30 people together doing nothing together. In capitalism, you'd say, shut the hotel down, shut the restaurant down, lay the workers off. Because nobody's staying at the hotel, nobody's staying at the restaurant. Why do you need 30 people? Well, Cuba's like, well, they only cost $1 a day, and it's your requirement. So you hire 30 people, probably a requirement to have a hotel that size. So you're like, okay, well, to run this hotel, you need to have 30 employees at $1 a day per person. So it's $30 a day. And you're like, yeah, it's nothing. So you hire 30 people to stand there and do nothing for hours and hours and hours. And it just blows me away. But it's a different social construct. They made that decision. Okay. But more money is not the solution. More productivity for everything. So think of 30 people standing around doing nothing all day, non-productive. Okay. So you got to divert that money and put it to something else. And what happens is it lowers inflation. So almost, again, the question is, why would hyperinflation collapse capitalism? By definition, it means not enough productivity. Okay? Not enough productivity. And of course, no productivity means no economy. And if you've ever been anywhere in the world that has a bad or no economy at all, poverty is just absolutely horrible. Some people have probably never left their OECD country. If you went to a small town in a third world country, it's horrible. And I would venture to guess productivity is quite low. Then you go to the richest countries and productivity is crazy high. So Japan is in a world of hurt and it can't create inflation. So Cuba has 100% inflation every 6 months. Japan can't even create the stuff. Why? They have like robots making stuff for them. Okay. Ashish says, could we anticipate the same hyperinflation in North Korea since it's a closed economy? It depends. See, they don't need... look, think of it this way. You can't have inflation in a closed economy. The velocity of money changes, and the government could add to money supply, but that's because they're doing something broken. They're paying their bills by printing money, which means they're mismanaging the money that they have. The bills should be low. See, again, it's all an illusion. A doctor in Cuba makes $40 a month. Oh, that's so crazy. Yeah, but you know what? You can live on $40 a month. Now, you might argue it's not enough, but there are plenty of doctors in Cuba, and they all make $40 a month. Okay? You can't live in America for $40 a month. You might need $4,000 a month in America to live like somebody that makes $40 a month in Cuba or whatever. Just take the example. And all of a sudden you're like, well, there's a big difference between 40 and 4,000, right? So what's the illusion there? The unit of measurement being in terms of dollars or pesos, but, right? So let's say, made us like survive, not live. Okay, so let's say let's say I walk in and I want to start a private facility in Cuba for Canadians and Americans. Well, I guess Americans can't go, but well, I guess you could in this circumstance. Like in Canada and in the United States, it's illegal to create your own death. If you were dying of a very painful and uncurable cancer, and you have to live through all of it and die in a hospital without dignity and in pain. What if you created a hospital in Cuba where like it's a one-way ticket to Cuba? That's why I'm like, you know what? You can fly to Cuba and you don't have to worry about coming back if it was a one-way trip. You know what I mean? Like die in paradise under medical supervision, whatever. Horrible example. But the world actually kind of needs a place like this, and I've thought about it. But anyways, where you can die in paradise with dignity and without pain, right? What if I decided to pay doctors $400 a month to work at my facility in Cuba? Am I taking advantage of them? Am I? Or is it just the money? It's just money. No. See, I don't see it that way. The unit of account, in this case, in dollars, okay? But in Cuba, Maida, you would probably have a higher standard of living than if I paid a doctor in America $4,000. Right. So it's not the money, it's right. The unit of account can change. And what we want to be focused on, and this is like even esoterically, how much money you make is irrelevant. The quality of your life is what matters. And 400 US dollars could make you filthy stinking rich, where $400,000 in the San Francisco Bay Area in California, it doesn't buy you much at all. $400,000 a year versus $5,000 a year I would pay my doctors in Cuba. $5,000 in Cuba is huge, right? So all of a sudden, like, so what actually matters? Is it the money? No, money is an illusion. Okay? But what we care about is productivity, standard of living, self-worth, dignity. And so the unit of money, like, do you care if it's $1 million that buy you hardly anything? A brick of gold? You know, like, what we care is the exchange. And we will exchange our time for money and our money to get the resource we need. Economics is the study of scarcity. So what do you need? A life, a fulfilling life of dignity. How much money does it cost? Well, the value of money changes, right? Maida says, yeah, my point is, yeah. Well, but you know what? But what I'm saying, Maida, is if I paid 10 times more money, then, like, correct me if I'm wrong for those that know the word Jambo. Jumbo, right? I was told, if I remember this correctly, that there's a loose translation. Like, it's not like, hey, what's up? It's more like, may your life be less complicated than normal. I know that's quite a stretch. right? But if I paid you 10 times more money, you're still in Cuba. 10 times more money, though, would probably get you a better neighborhood, a better apartment, healthier food, enough to share with your friends and family, right? And suddenly life sucks less. But that's a dramatic increase in the standard of living. And ultimately, better. But $5,000 in America doesn't buy you jack. Okay? You're like, $5,000? Right? Like, what does that get you? Right? But it would be an amazing amount in Cuba. So the money illusion doesn't matter. Because like in New York City, you spend, I don't know, I'll make up a number. I don't know, $3,000 is probably a cheap apartment. But you might make a lot more money in New York City than you do in rural Kansas or rural Alabama, where $300 buys you a decent apartment. $3,000 buys you a decent, like not nice, a decent apartment. And by decent, like Georgia, you're like, I could never live in a place like that. So all of it is just relevant. But if you work in New York City, you probably make $200,000 a year. Where rural Alabama, nobody makes $200,000 a year, not even a doctor. So anyways, money is an illusion. And so maybe I got an amazing deal on a watch, but I might have helped somebody that was desperately needed help. I don't know. I don't know. I have a watch right here I bought from Cambodia. Yeah. Now I have another one coming in from the Ukraine. It's kind of interesting. People need help. Money is the illusion. Okay? Money is the illusion. But you need money so you can exchange it for what you need. And that's the scarcity. That's what economics measures. The choices you make because of the scarcity you face. Well, we've been waiting for you, Emerald. Okay, so we're ready to go now. Let's get going. Let's take a look at commodities. Emerald's here, everybody. All right, cool. So let's take a look at gold. Right now, I have this pointed down because of the disinflationary pressures. It was held up during non-farm payrolls because of this idea that maybe the Fed doesn't need a raise. Okay, and once we kind of look at that and say, okay, maybe the Fed doesn't need to go to 6, but we still need to go 5.75, and all of a sudden, should we kind of should we bet on the longer term trend? This is kind of what I'm looking at here. Okay, and right now we're kicking off the daily 21. Maybe this gets squeezed to the downside. We definitely have pressure above us. You see that? A Patek? No. This one I just bought. It's 100 and something year old Omega, but not a Patek. No, but I'm excited about it. It's a Tiffany blue Patek, Tiffany blue Omega, but I think it was from. This one's from like 1921, something like that. Yeah, interesting. I didn't expect to get it. So anyways. Interesting. All right, so S&P 500. This is another one. This one is kind of important to me. Now, first of all, look, if this goes up, I benefit. There's no doubt. I'm exposed to the U.S. economy. But in this period here, you will recall, in this period here, what was I talking about as far as my stock portfolio? preparing for a decline. We won't call it a crash, but definitely the end of the up for now. Now, I still think what will happen is I end up buying this back at a later date, probably more like September, right? But nonetheless, in that circle period, this was going up hard and fast. And I repositioned my portfolio to not be hurt, is really how to look at it. Okay? By that. Now, earlier, meaning last year, so I think I really have to go out now. Last year, in this period here, so let's do a contrast. In this period here, I was triple leveraged short. You guys remember that? And then somewhere in here, I got out of triple leverage short. And now I'm like, okay, let it run. And then more recently in here, neutral. Okay? Neutral, 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 neutral. And I think, you know, this might be the next move. So I'm not triple leverage short, but I will not, I don't really care what happens next. If it goes up, I will benefit. If it goes down, like, for example, if the stock market drops 10% this year, I will still make 10% in the stock market. I've designed it. I'm done. No matter what happens, I'm going to make 10%. So imagine over the course of, let's say we have a mini recession or something. And let's say we end this year down 10%. Okay? How much money have I lost? Zero. So that's a mild recession. That's not a big deal. But nonetheless, the economy is really strong. And then let's say next year is up 20%. Okay? So what's happened? Well, we went from -10 to 0, and then from 0 to +10. But you have to understand, I never got out of this trade because I was already hedged. I didn't lose money. I got income in my pocket. So now we went back down, and now we're up 10%. So next year, my net asset value will be up 10%, plus I made another 10% in the market. So now next year, I'm actually up 20%. So like, if there's a 10%, and by the way, my volatility is lower, and then I could readjust my portfolio. If I thought we were going to be down 20%, I can readjust this portfolio so I have a lower beta. And so under that scenario, so like, for example, NASDAQ, okay, versus the Dow. Okay, both are broad stock markets, both in America and all that kind of stuff. But the volatility of Dow is significantly lower than NASDAQ. NASDAQ's all these unicorn companies, and they could be up 20% and they could be down 20%. Well, in that scenario, Dow might only be down 10%. That would have a beta, a half the beta, plus or minus 10%, where the extreme highs could be plus, or extreme lows could be 20% on this one, right? So I could say I want the, when things are good, I want the positive beta, and I want as much as that 20% as possible. But then if I felt like the stock market was going to come down and there was real risk, then I roll this over and I get out of that NASDAQ and I go into a lower beta. So on the way down, if NASDAQ drops 20, I only drop 10. But I still earn my 10. And then what happens at the bottom of this is, what do? I get out of my low beta and I switch back to NASDAQ and catch my high beta, so now I catch the 20. So now I'm actually up 30%, 20 in net asset value, 10 on the income. You see the game of portfolio construction? You see how it all works? This is what hedge funds are supposed to do. So anyways, on this daily, the prices that we have to pay attention to is this is our floor and this is our ceiling. And they're important because we already knew, I'd say minimum 2 weeks ago, that this was likely our bullish floor. Or I guess it's the other way, right? Bearish floor, which means bulls would buy, and bullish ceiling, which means this is where the uptrend could fail, right? And so this being the 21, but also the central pivot, this being the monthly M3. And so how did we have this lined up over at Investor Bootcamp even a week or two ago? Well, we had it like this. Let me get this drawn properly. Okay, let's make this a little thicker. We had it set like something closer to this. Will that happen? That's not the point. You don't know the future. However, if you thought it was potential, and however you got there through your research, maybe it's something like seasonality. Maybe it's your view on the economy. Maybe it's your view on earnings season. For example, earnings season might come out good. Remember, it starts this week. So let's say the first companies start to report and they're like, things are good, but we're cutting our outlook. The stock market comes down. They're making money now, but we already priced that in. The stock market is 6 to 12 months in advance. So if companies say, we did okay this quarter, but we expect next quarter and 2024 to be less good. Ish kaput, ja! It matters. So this comes around. So I don't know how you get to the conclusion. Just make sure it's research and logic, not your feeling and your best guess. Nobody cares about that. Okay? So that would be the potential for the future. What does the current market suggest? Okay? A technician would look at it like this. So the technicals are true. The technicals are right. The technicals are fact, but they are backward looking. There's the weakness. Now, when you look at economic data and particular like seasonal research, because there's two things. Think of the business cycle and the annual cycle. You have to put these together. So they are trying to predict the future. That's their weakness because it hasn't happened yet. Now they can give you suggestions. They can show you normality. They can even highlight abnormality. But they don't predict what humans are going to do. They don't think about greed. It doesn't think about greed and fear and all that kind of stuff. It is what it is. What logic might determine, but humans are emotional. So you could look at it and say, well, based on your research, you're thinking the pink arrows. But you would never bet on it. Do you understand? You would never bet on that. This is going up. The blue lines are correct. But the thing is to know and understand both. This is the secret sauce, by the way, everybody. To understand and know both factually, but then add the correct weight to things that change. You think they might change, but when they change, you assign the appropriate weight to the change. An amateur trader always trades euro dollar, and they always like to buy or they always like to sell or whatever, and there's no weight to anything. But if you understood, like, if it shouldered here and you had, let's say, economic concerns, and you knew things like this week's inflation data could bring the stock market down. If we still have high inflation, it could bring this down. Or if earnings come out and they cut future profits, this comes down. And you understand technically and fundamentally, like if it rolled over here, that green arrow on the right, then you know the stock market's probably going to fall all the way back to 4,000. Forget 4,100. Okay? 4,000. And in fact, when you throw in seasonality, you could even think, well, there's even a bit of room for next month. So if it fell to 4,000 this month, okay, it wouldn't fall like that, but let's say it gets there, then we're probably on our way to the future 200. Okay? So all of that from a tiny little flip. So the 618 is 3871. So let's just say July, August, September. Is that possible? It's not the prettiest thing I've ever seen, but yeah. But you have to understand the context of our existence, the context of our reality. If we form a head and shoulders up here, does it matter? Yes. The thing is, I prepared for that 3 weeks ago, and that's the lesson I'm trying to give you. 3 weeks ago, I took care of business. And I told you about it as I was doing it. Okay? So anyways, I think I went too much today, too esoteric. I didn't sleep very much. I missed you over the weekend too. So I'm sorry I was a babble fest today. This is an interesting time to be alive, and I'm glad that you're with me. I will set up the Friday meeting at 11. Okay? I will do the work. I'll spend the time. So I'm counting on you to be there. Otherwise, I'm just wasting time. And I have no time. I have no time. I worked all the holidays, all the weekends, all that kind of stuff. I'm not sleeping very much. I will cut back on something, and I will make this quarterly outlook for you. I just want to make sure it's important that you're there, and I'm making the right decision. That's all I care about. I'll also roll out this week all the amazing changes to QuantBox. So that's going to be great. And then remember, September, I will, not this week, maybe next week, I'll create a web page and a sign up. But we are going to meet September 13th, is a Wednesday, in downtown Austin, Texas. And I think, like I was talking out loud, and I think it's the right thing, I think I'll sell 2 types of tickets because I have to secure the facility and all that. So I need to make sure you're going to be there, and there's cost to all these things, right? So anyway, so I'll put it so that like there's a cocktail reception where we can all get together, and I get an opportunity to meet you and shake your hand and give you a hug, and maybe we'll do a selfie together, and we'll share stories. Right? And then hopefully there's 20 of us for something like that. And then maybe for a smaller group, we can go out and have dinner somewhere, because I don't think you can have a table for 20 in most places. But maybe if there was a table of 8 or something. So for those that want to stay a little bit longer and have a little bit more intimate of an experience, we'll do something like that. I think. But ultimately, I care about you. We'll do whatever you want. But I certainly don't plan on like doing a weekend seminar thing. Like, no, that's not what I'm there for. But I'd love to give you a hug. So anyways, life's beautiful. Peace on earth. May the pips be with you. May our profits be above average. Thanks for being on my team. See ya.